I would rather risk it all and stand for something than like sell a crap load of product and stand for nothing and not do anything that matters. It's one thing to decide that. It's another thing though, when it's like everything's on the line.
Hey, my name is Jenna Kutcher, and I am obsessed with all things business, marketing, numbers, and helping you to navigate both the messy and the magical seasons of this thing called life. I'm a small town mama who took a $300 camera, grew a successful photo biz, and now I work from home and run a 7-figure online business. I teach you the tried and true secrets to building a career you adore. Shy away from the real talk? No way. Money, hardship, growth, loss, and marketing are all topics we discuss here. Think of this as your one-stop shop for happy hour with a gal pal mixed with business school. Pull up a seat, make sure you're cozy, and get ready to be challenged and encouraged while you learn. This is the Goal Digger Podcast. If you want to talk about putting in the work to make your dreams happen, you have to talk to my friend, Jamie Kern Lima. You might be wearing one of her products from IT Cosmetics right now, but before the billion-dollar brand was even a thing, yes, billion, she was a TV news anchor struggling with sensitive skin who could never find a product that actually worked for her. She created a cosmetics brand that would go on to be more than just products, but an inspired community of millions of women who share their stories of overcoming their struggles with confidence and self-worth. Can you tell why I love her? Jamie is a total powerhouse businesswoman, an inspiring speaker, and a warm spirit who is on the Goal Digger podcast today to share the real story behind the billion-dollar brand. I'm so excited to talk to her about staying true to your why and navigating those seasons when you don't know if you will actually survive, and why she was ashamed of the word richest. Are you ready for my friend, Jamie Kern Lima? I am so excited to introduce you to her if you don't know her already. Let's dive on in. Thanks to Storyworth for supporting the Goal Digger podcast. Give your mom the most meaningful gift this year and get started right away without the need for shipping by going to storyworth.com/goaldigger to get $10 off your first purchase. Thanks to Gusto for supporting the Goal Digger podcast. Gusto offers modern, easy payroll and benefits for small businesses across the country. They were even named Best Online Payroll by PC Mag. Get 3 months for free when you run your first payroll at gusto.com/goaldigger. Jamie, when I close my eyes, I literally can feel my hand just reaching over to you as we sat at a table and the sun was shining on our backs in Puerto Rico. And so today I'm going to close my eyes as we chat and imagine that we are poolside again. Welcome to the show.
Yes, Jenna, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I remember the moment sitting down next to you. And, there's some incredible human beings out there. And sometimes when you meet them, you're like, oh, they're different than I thought. And I remember the first time I met you, I was like, oh my goodness, she is even more incredible than I could have imagined. And I am I am excited to be here with you and with your community. So thank you for having me.
Okay. So I'm actually really excited to hear your story. It's so funny nowadays because I feel like when we sit down at tables and there's so many people, it's like you catch blips and like snippets. And I want to know, who is Jamie and how did you build what you've built? Because if anyone Googles you, they're going to see some words in there and they're going to think, wait, what? So tell me the story behind the journey.
Oh, the story behind the story. Yeah, I mean, if that's what's so funny about Google, right? Or even sometimes social media, you kind of see the headlines. And I think, for me, I spent the last decade, I literally started with nothing in my living room and had the most difficult first 3 years building my business and thought it was just going to work and thought all those things. And yeah, I mean, I founded a company called IT Cosmetics, sold it in the largest U.S. acquisition in L'Oreal's history, over $1 billion. And all these things are the headlines. But the real story kind of behind the story is, I grew up in Washington State and neither of my parents had gone to college. And, my dad worked at a factory job and had rotating shifts, like checking glass for defects. And I always just kind of had this feeling deep inside, like I was meant to do more. And, no one in my family had gone to college or anything like that. And I started just working, a lot growing up. I think I was an entrepreneur early on. Jenna, I don't know if you did this early on, but like I would make cookies and then try to sell them at school for like
Oh
$1
yeah.
a
I had
bag.
lemonade stands on a
Yes.
dirt road in rural Minnesota, 100%.
I did like these little lists of my Easter candy, thinking like, if I keep it, could I resell it? I'm like, I don't know what was wrong with me as a had weird things like that, but I always worked really hard. And I remember as a teenager, wanting a car, and my parents wouldn't get me one. So I had a bunch of jobs. I bagged groceries at a grocery store called Safeway and pushed in the carts from the parking lot, and sold popcorn at the swap meet and coached gymnastics, and just tried to like work as much as I could to get my first car, which was a 3-cylinder Geo Metro, and it would not go up the hills in Seattle in the rain. I'd have to back down because it wasn't powerful enough. It was a stick shift. It was scary, but it worked. And I ended up, going to college and working. I worked as a Denny's waitress in college, got fired from that job actually for talking too much, which but they had operational issues at that Denny's where the pancakes wouldn't come out fast enough and it would take an hour and people would be upset. And anyways, I would talk to customers and try to get them to be happy, and ended up getting fired from Denny's, but I also worked at the deli, slicing deli meat and deli cheese in college, and just always kind of had these big dreams. And, I wasn't sure, I didn't know exactly what they would be. And I went off to graduate school, and everyone was doing, big business internships in graduate school. And I started writing for the school paper and fell in love with other people's stories and like doing interviews. And I thought, oh, I want to do this for my career. And so when I graduated, I took the lowest paying job probably in the history of my business school. I took a job this was in 2000. What year was this? 2004. I took a job for $23,500 a year as a television news anchor and reporter and journalist. And that's what I thought I was going to do my whole career. And I did that for a few years. And then I had like this moment that a lot of entrepreneurs have where like something becomes a huge problem in your life and you realize there's no solution for it. And you kind of have that light bulb moment of, oh, wait, I think I'm supposed to do something about this. And a lot of businesses are created that way, and a lot of ideas are created that way. And for me, Jenna, it was a skin condition called rosacea, which is bright red all over my cheeks. A lot of times it's sandpaper-like texture, and it's hereditary, so there's no cure for it. And I would be anchoring the news, and I would hear in my ear, that earpiece that you have to wear when you're live on television. And the producers would talk through my earpiece. I would be, doing live breaking news or whatever it would be. And they would be talking in my ear saying, there's something on your face. There's something on your face. And I knew it was the makeup was breaking up. So under those hot HD lights, and the bright redness was coming through, and this problem just got worse and worse. And that's when I had this moment where I kind of became obsessed with trying to find a solution, and spending my paycheck on every type of makeup out there, like the most expensive in the department stores and the least expensive in the drugstore. And nothing would work without looking like a thick mask or just like not covering it all. And that was when kind of my whole life changed, because I had this feeling that there must be other people out there that are frustrated with makeup, or they've given it up, or can't find anything that works, or that are struggling with confidence or skin issues, the way I was. And that was when I just became obsessed with figuring out, what can I do about this? And that's when the idea for It Cosmetics was born. And I had no idea how hard it would be after that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, okay, so you have the idea, turn it into $1 billion company, but what happens next?
Oh, Jenna, I love so much that you are so honest about everything. You talk about your closet with boxes. Because like, I love it, because I feel like when we share like our real stories, it's like, that's how we know. Sometimes when we see it or hear it, it's like, oh, that's how we know it's possible for us. And, I remember at the time when I, went to do this. So it was the most unglamorous journey. And, for all the women and men in your community that are business owners or have ideas or want to start companies or have dreams. Like, I love that you share the real stuff. And so I'm going to do that too, because I am on Miss Jenna Kutcher's podcast. And so
tell me the real stuff.
Okay. So like, super hard. I just thought, okay, I'm going to pour, all my savings. My husband and I, we got married on our honeymoon flight to South Africa. We wrote this business plan for It Cosmetics. And I thought, okay, we're just going to take the savings we have and I'm going to pour it all into, product development, to R&D, to an advisory board. And I'm going to create a product that actually works. And I thought once I do that, like, we're golden, right? And
mistake number one.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So that's what we did. And I quit my job in television news, and I didn't know anybody in the beauty industry or even in the industries I would need to create a product company. So I hired the guy who works at my TV news station, who does like the graphics that go on the news where they say like murder happened here, like the maps. He had never designed packaging or anything else. And he came to my living room every morning at 4:30 in the morning before his full-time job. And we just sat there with his desktop computer that he would take out of the trunk of his car. And we sat there on the floor and designed the first packaging. And I would like Google, like FDA compliance, regulatory compliant labeling. Like I would just pray, to be honest with you, that I did everything right in the beginning and just did the best that I could. And we couldn't really afford to hire anyone yet, but I thought, once this product is done and these prototype samples, like, retailers are going to love it because it's going to change lives and help so many people. So that's what I thought. So I sent so many samples, like to Sephora and Ulta Beauty and QVC and all the department stores, and every single one of them said no. Every single one. And I don't even know in most cases that they actually tried the product. It was just like, I would either hear nothing or I would get an email thanking me for submitting, but saying it's not right for them at this time. And it started getting really real, really fast, because I kind of realized, oh my gosh, okay, I can't afford to advertise. None of the retailers are carrying my product. And it's like, if people don't, you can have the best product in the world, but if people don't know it exists, it sucks. And so I thought, like, okay, our website is going to save the day. And, we're going to go live and we're going to sell this. And then all the retailers will hear about it and we'll finally get yeses. And my husband bought that book, HTML for Dummies, and he designed our first website. And for anybody listening who works with a partner or a friend or a family member, you'll understand this, but our website went live and I was so excited. Like, I was freaking out. Like, I thought this is going to be it. And the day it went live, we didn't get a single order. And then the next day, no orders. The next day, no orders. And I finally said to him, I'm like, it's broken. You did it wrong. Like, it's broken. And so several more days passed, and finally we got our first order, and I was like running around screaming. I was so excited. And he said to me, that was me. He goes, I placed the order to prove to you it's not broken. And I was just like, oh, and it was so tough. This went on where we finally, got to one order a day, sometimes two or three on a really great day. But it became, what I didn't know, Jenna, is, okay, I poured all my money into product, and I believed in our product so much. But then I was in this situation where it ended up being 3 years before we could pay ourselves. And we got down to under $1,000 in our bank account, which was like our company bank account and our personal one. I was using my middle name. This is a great, I don't know if I should promote this, but for anyone out there who can't afford to hire people yet, like, I was like, how do I get publicity? What do I do? So I used, my middle real name is Marie. So Marie at itcosmetics.com, she got her own email address, and she was like head of customer service and head of PR and would like pitch.
And it was really you.
Yes,
That is brilliant.
And Marie would pitch like all the beauty editors and say, our founder is available for an interview. And it was really hard, and just kind of like, you do what you got to do and you figure out like, how are you going to stay alive? And that's what's super tough. And I guess the biggest thing that, I look back on is, why were all of these retailers saying no? It was because we were doing something that was really different at the time. So when we launched this, it was before there were influencers that were, doing makeup tutorials or anything. And so at the time, and it wasn't that many years ago, but at the time, all you saw out there were these kind of like photoshopped, airbrushed models in these makeup ads where you didn't even really know if they're even wearing the product, let alone if that's what they really look like. And that's really all that you saw in department stores or anywhere. And I had created this product and this idea where I wanted to show, unairbrushed, so real, women that aren't photoshopped. And I wanted to show my own rosacea and go, look how this product works. And, I wanted to show women of all ages and skin issues and skin types and skin tones. And whenever I would present these ideas and this marketing packaging to department stores or retailers, they would always just say, it's not the right fit. It's not going to work. And it was really tough because they all said no. And I think that's one of the biggest things. Like, I would save myself so many nights crying myself to sleep if I knew then what I know now, which is like, if you're going to do anything that's actually novel or new or innovative or different or shifts culture or makes an impact, like if your idea hasn't been done before, then it's like, of course, all of these retailers they're not going to get it. They're not going to go, oh yeah, that's like, because there's nothing that's ever happened that sort of like proves to them, that gives them social proof in their mind that it's going to work because it's never been done before. And, it's like, because I was doing something different and positioning a product super different, it took a long time for anybody to say yes to us. But because we stuck to our guns and didn't change everything, like they would always give, when I finally started getting retailer meetings, they would say, I remember a meeting, Jenna, at Sephora, and I was like, I thought my life was going to change and I could barely afford the airplane ticket to San Francisco. And I went there in the big high-rise building, and I remember feeling like I was in that movie, like Devil Wears Prada. You know what I mean?
Like, this is my Anne Hathaway moment when she makes it.
Yes, that's how I felt. And I remember like going up to their floor, which is a super high floor in this building. And I was like looking around and I was like, oh my gosh, trying to pray and feel confident when I felt so out of place, just because I wasn't raised around things like that and, such beautiful offices. And anyhow, I knew my product was good. And I went into that meeting and I poured my heart out. And I thought, because it was like, I needed to get a yes, or I didn't know if we were going to stay in business. And I got a no. And I got a lot of feedback on how we need to change our packaging to make it more exclusive and use different models. And they kind of, at the time, had said, if you're going to keep this like showing, real skin issues on real women, you might want to go to the drugstores. And I'm like, you know what? Real women want real good products, and real women have money, and real women want things that work. Like we're all real women that, you know what I mean? That I feel like want to see someone who looks like us. And it was just tough. And it wasn't until like a single moment happened 3 years into our business on QVC. It was like one of the biggest moments in my life, actually, where I had to either go with my gut or kind of like go with what experts were saying when everything was on the line. That was the biggest moment and probably biggest lesson in my whole journey, was like this decision I made when we launched on QVC that changed everything. But until that moment, everyone had just said no, and it was super tough.
Let's play a game of word association. When I say payroll processing, what's your immediate reaction? Confusing, time consuming, the last thing you want to worry about when you have a business to run? When it comes to running payroll or filing taxes, figuring out benefits, HR, and more, try Gusto. Gusto is easy online payroll, benefits, and HR built for modern small businesses with all the management tools that you need in one platform. Gusto automatically files and pays all state, local, and federal payroll taxes. Plus, the fast, easy to run payroll includes W-2s and 1099s for your team, as well as tools to manage health benefits, 401ks, and more for almost any budget. On average, running payroll with Gusto takes just 11 minutes, and you'll get 3 months free when you run your first payroll at gusto.com/goaldigger. Okay, now let's play word association again. I say payroll processing. You say Gusto. Get 3 months free when you run your first payroll at gusto.com/goaldigger. I keep thinking about my mom with all of this time spent apart, and Mother's Day is coming up, and all I want to do is just squeeze our whole family around the table to celebrate my mom and tell stories and be closer than 6 feet apart. This year, even if we can't be together, I'll be hearing her stories thanks to Storyworth. Storyworth is a fun and meaningful way to engage with family, especially with relatives you might not get to see often. This online service helps your loved ones share stories through thought-provoking questions about their memories and personal thoughts. It's the gift of spending time together wherever you live. Storyworth is offering $10 off your first purchase at storyworth.com/goaldigger. Every time my mom finishes one of the writing prompts, it pops up in my email, and I feel even more connected to her through her words and her memories, even if we're far away. After 1 year, Storyworth compiles every answered question and photo that you've chosen to include into a beautiful keepsake book that's shipped out for free. My family will treasure this book forever. Give your mom the most meaningful gift this year with Storyworth. Get started right away without the need for shipping by going to storyworth.com/goaldigger. You'll get $10 off of your first purchase. That's storyworth.com/goaldigger for $10 off. Okay, so let's talk about what happens next. Like, you can't just leave off there. I'm not letting this story pause.
Well, oh my gosh, Jenna, I feel like you yourself are shifting culture in such an impactful way for women. And it's like, whenever I see another woman doing this, I get so excited, because for me, it's like, everyone talks about your why, right? Like, what is your why for your business, your why for everything? And it's like, for me, it kind of came all down to that. And what I mean by that is, we've been hearing no for 3 years from everybody. I went to a beauty trade show where there was about 6,000 women in New York City. All the beauty brands were there demonstrating their products that launched that year, hoping to win an award. And QVC had a big booth there. And it's a long story that I'll make super short, but they had been saying no for years. And I was like, okay, this is my chance to meet them in person. Like, just go up to the buyer there and just introduce myself, and just kind of like, just kind of have, I don't want to say big balls. I don't know what to say. I was just like do it, like be fearless. Yes, be fearless. And, I was at you get a 3-foot table where you can demonstrate your product, and, it's every big brand there. And then I'm there with It Cosmetics, which no one had ever heard of. And, and I was just hoping that maybe a retailer would stop by and try the product or something. Meanwhile, you're not supposed to leave your 3-foot booth. And I didn't want to get kicked out, but I was like, I have to go to QVC. I have to meet them. And I kept sneaking away from my booth. And every time I would do that, the buyer was busy and like a crowd around her. I finally snuck away, went up to her, introduced myself. I was like shaking. Have you ever talked to someone you're so nervous, like sweat's running down your body? And you're like, This is so disgusting. It's like, I was just freaking out, praying for the right words to say, because it wasn't just like, oh, I want to be on QVC. It was like, I don't know how my company is going to stay alive. And I just felt like QVC could be the perfect partner because they're live. They're live.
Display, you can show it.
Exactly. You can prove it. It's like, oh, your product's good. Prove it live, right? And that was my whole dream. And my dream was also to show all different types of women and call them aspirational models. And that had never been done even on QVC before. And so went up to the buyer, had this great conversation. She was super nice, gave me her card, said, let's have a meeting. But like, then I went back to my table, not knowing if she really meant it, and rehearsed. You know how you go over in your head, did I say the right things? What should I have done? All that. While I was doing all that, a QVC show host came up to me, and apparently I had talked to her earlier, but didn't even realize it because I wasn't like present, and I was just focused on trying to get away and go to the booth. She came up to me and said, I tried your concealer earlier and I love it. I think our QVC gals need it at home. And I just want you to know, I went up to the buyer and I told her that she needs to have you on. And I just looked at this show host. Her name was Lisa Mason. I looked at her and I started sobbing. And then I think I freaked her out because she's like, oh, I don't have any power. I can't do, I can't. And I was like, thank you. And long story short, QVC is in Westchester, Pennsylvania. So flew out there, got a yes, which was our first big yes. But Jenna, what it meant and why it became like the scariest moment in my entire business career was because QVC was going to give us one shot, and it's a 10-minute window, meaning you go live on air for 10 minutes in front of 100 million homes, but beauty is consignment on QVC. So the issue was, okay, we were selling 1 to 2, maybe 3 orders a day on our website. We had to manufacture, ship, get in the QVC approved packaging, QVC approved third-party labs, everything. 6,000 units of our concealer to sell in 10 minutes to hit their sales goal or not come back. And like, there's a famous saying in business, never take a purchase order you can't afford to lose, which you should never do. Like, no one should ever do this.
We're not advising this, but
do not do it. Like I mentor so many women, and I always tell them, you have to plan that you could lose this, and you have to be okay with it. Otherwise, don't accept it. Don't accept this purchase order. Don't do consignment. Anyhow, it felt though, after 3 years, I mean, we were down to under $1,000, right, in our bank account. And it just felt like it was this or nothing, because everyone had said no. And so here's the hard part and the pivotal moment. We took out a loan to, get 6,000 units of concealer. I had 10 minutes to sell it all or not come back. And the issue is, if you go live on air and, your clock starts at 10 minutes, and let's just say you're a minute in and it's not doing well, they will cut your time live. So all of a sudden you'll see your clock go to 4 minutes or down to 2 minutes, and it's not doing well. And then anything that doesn't sell, you have to take back. QVC is like, if you try to sell, nothing sells. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
It's like, if you do anything that's not
It's a science.
Yes. And also, like, customers are so smart, and they know, like, you can't fake authenticity. So if you go on there and, and say anything other than what your product is, it's not going to do well. Or if it does well, they'll ship it off, they'll return it all. You know what I mean? So it's like, it was the most stressful thing. And the reason why is because we met with these consultants who help a lot of people, like, do really well selling on TV, and they're awesome. They help so many people. And when we met with them, they all had said the same thing, which is, okay, if you're going to have a chance, because most people fail at selling on TV, but they're saying, if you're going to have a chance to do well selling in beauty, here's the formula you need to follow. And here is, because that's what's always and only ever worked, which is, okay, you're going to use, 3 to 4 models that are all, in their early 20s with perfect skin. And you're going to do, and I'm like, okay, but that's not why I created this product, And it's like, I had this big struggle because I'm like, listen, I want to show everyone watching, like, I want to show them my bright red rosacea and, like, show them live how this works. And they're like, okay, but if, and we would argue about it. And it's like, they wanted us to win. And all that had ever worked was what they were saying to do. So I got it. And it was so difficult to decide, because really everything in our business was on the line. Like, it was like, oh my gosh, like the fate of our company, but also just like our money. Like, we had a tiny bit of money from friends and family in the beginning. All of it was on the line. And I flew out a week early and I sat by myself in this rental car in the parking lot of QVC for a week. And I just sat there and just like tried to envision how the whole, sell was going to go, and prayed. And like, I just felt so much pressure because I felt like, okay, if I go with what the experts are saying, like this might do really well and we might stay in business. But on the flip side, it's like, but then it's not why I created this. And you know what I mean? It was so hard. And I would imagine, and I actually always do this to this day, but I would imagine like, who is that woman I'm talking to? And, and if I have just 10 minutes, like what it came down to, Jenna, was like, I would even imagine like, okay, what if she is a stay-at-home mom in Nebraska and she's, folding laundry and she looks up at her TV and sees me, like,
yep.
What do I want her to see? And it came down to like, okay, for so many women, for so many years, for so many generations, women have forgotten they're beautiful. They've forgotten they matter. They have never felt beautiful or not in a long time. And I was like, I want her to look up and see on her TV my bright red rosacea. I want her to see women of every age, every size, every skin problem, skin tone, you name it. And it was this moment where I realized I would rather like risk it all and stand for something than like sell a crap load of product and stand for nothing and do what everyone else is doing and not do anything that matters. And it's like, it's one thing to decide that. It's another thing though, when it's like everything's on the line.
Yeah.
And I remember it was finally the moment where, and that the host that discovered us at the beauty show, they paired me with her for our 10 minutes, which was amazing. She had been there 17 years on QVC, and then she retired right after our first show. But anyways, but they paired me with her, and I was like so nervous and like overly produced and type A about like what I was going to do in every second. And I walked up to her with this whole rundown, because you get like a 2-minute meeting before your show, because they meet with every person for the hours that they're on ahead of time, but it's fast. Your producer meeting's fast. And I was like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. So we're going to open with, this and that. And she's like, cut me off super fast. And she's like, thank you, honey, but here's what we're going to do. And she told me flat out. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, okay, at that point you just pray, right? Because I was like, I don't know if she knows everything's on the line, but like at that point, what do you do? And I just prayed like crazy. And she's such a pro. She knew what she was doing. And the clock started at the 10-minute mark. And I just, like, my face was so red, even more red than normal, because I wasn't nervous for television at all, because I'd done that for my career. It was just that everything was on the line. And I remember like I showed every model of different ages and skin tones, and my bright red bare face came up on national television. And I was like, and got to show why I created it. And I remember it was like close to the 9-minute mark. And the host said, okay, the deep shade is sold out. Okay, the medium shade is sold out. And I was like freaking out. And like right at the 10-minute mark, the sold out sign came up across the screen. I start crying. I start crying. They cut. And I was just like, and I remember my husband came running in the studio, and he's like, we're not, because he was in the green room watching the show, and he comes running in the studio. He's like, we're not going bankrupt. And I'm like, real women have spoken. And I was like crying. And Jackie, who is employee number 1, our first employee, who's still with the company, runs 2 departments. She's one of the 3 women that go on QVC now. She was crying. Like, it was crazy, because we kind of like stuck with what really mattered. Yeah. And then what ended up happening was that one airing led to 5 that year, and then 101 the next year. And then the last 8 years, we've done 250 live shows a year, created the largest beauty brand in QVC history, which it is to this day right now. And it's like, and then, got yeses from Ulta and Sephora and everywhere else. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, when you look back and it's like now all of the retailers, the department stores, everybody uses images that show real different ages and different, skin challenges and real airbrushed, unphotoshopped, women. And I'm so grateful, for whatever part I helped play in that. But it's like, oh my gosh, because I didn't listen to everyone saying, change this, change that, use these types of models, change your packaging, make it way higher end. It's too like accessible or inclusive. Because I didn't change any of that, we actually were able to build something that really resonated and mattered. And then we grew and grew and grew and grew, became the second largest luxury makeup company in the country. And then L'Oreal, and it's been and a lot of burnout. I don't even know. There's so much to share, but a lot of burnout in between all that, and just, hiring and growth and making a million mistakes and all that good stuff.
One thing that I think is so amazing about your story is your conviction to your why. And I think a lot of times when people create something, they start looking at mentors and they look at the strategies and the step-by-step processes, and they think, okay, this is how I have to do that. And when I was closing my eyes and listening to you and thinking about, okay, there's this expert that has done this a million times and they're telling me this is how it needs to be done, but I don't believe that, or I don't agree with it. How did you stay so focused in on your why? Because I think it'd be so easy for people to be like, hey, this person knows what they're doing. I'm going to drop what I think. I'm just going to trust them. And it could have changed everything.
Yeah. For me, and it's so tempting, right? Especially because everyone has an opinion, or now on social media, it just looks like everyone's doing well. And so they must know what they're doing. And half the time, you never have the true real story. For me, I think when you really peel back the layers on what your why is for your dream or your business, or it has to be so powerful that nothing can shift it. And if other people's opinions can shift it, then it's not a powerful enough why. I remember, early on, when we were down to under $1,000, we had an interest from a potential investor, the private equity company. And, we got really far along in the meetings, and I was so desperate and hopeful they would invest because I didn't know how we were going to stay alive. And we had, had all these meetings, brought lawyers on board and did diligence. And then they ended up saying no. And I'll never forget, I stood next to the investor. He was 3 feet from me, and my husband was on the other side, and we were on this sidewalk. And they had invested in tons of really great consumer product companies. And I thought they were going to say yes. And he said, we've decided to pass on the investment. And I said, okay, can you give feedback? And he said, well, if you want me to be honest, I'm just not sure women would buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And he was being so honest. But I remember in that moment, of course it hurt, of course, but I remember just having this knowing deep down inside, he's wrong. And I mean, I had weak moments after that where I would, Google all the people that are my, mentors and heroes and all that. And I would be like, if Oprah's weight, if she lost weight, would her show get better ratings? No, no, this can't be right. It didn't sit well in my gut. And it's people like him, it's had I, gone on this crazy diet to try and get an investor, it goes against my why, because my why was to shift culture and beauty to be one that's way more inclusive, that shifts the images that women see of what's being called aspirational, and, that shifts formulas around products that work. And that kind of why was so strong. And honestly, if your why isn't strong enough, that's one of the things I would really focus on figuring out and peeling back the layers on, because, even when we started getting all this success on QVC, it started getting really hard. And if it weren't for my why, and what I mean by that is, I started working 100-hour weeks, and I did 100-hour weeks for 10 years, which I probably, if I could look back, it's one of the things that I pray every day that it didn't affect my health. I don't know. I just pray that it didn't. But, my husband and I was doing IVF and fertility, and nobody knew, and we weren't getting pregnant, and we were just having a lot of struggles. Meanwhile, I was just all in 100-hour weeks trying to build this business and then doing 250 live shows a year myself on QVC while hiring. We hired over 1,000 employees and across the country and kind of like running the business from the green room. And there would be days, Jenna, where like I shouldn't say had to, I got the blessing of being able to go on QVC for these, 36-hour straight Today's Special Values where you walk in the building and you go on live at midnight, but for 24 hours, but you're there many hours in advance for meetings and preparation. But, you don't leave for 36 hours and you have this sales pressure of millions of dollars on your shoulders that day, knowing if it doesn't hit goal, you might get the item pulled off air and all shipped back to you. And you have all that pressure. And I was so burnt out for several years. And the only thing that got me through it was my why. Like I would sit there in the green room with stacks of letters and, messages, emails, DMs from customers, from real women all over that, share their real stories about how, they feel beautiful for the first time or the first time in a long time. And it's not the makeup, it's more just the messaging of, that they are and that they see themselves in our brand. And it's like, that's how I got through all that, because money isn't enough to get you through, hard times and burnout. It's like, it's not a big enough motivator to not give up. And so for me, I think your why, has to be super strong. And I think, again, if someone hasn't really figured out that why for them, that's strong enough to not give up, that's like something really worth investing time in for sure.
Well, I think that's so apparent in every step and decision you made. And I want to pivot slightly because I remember when I first met you, I did what everyone else does and start stalking. And I remember when I landed on your post with the Forbes cover with the title, "The Richest Self-Made Women," and your photograph on it. And I remember reading your caption talking about how you hid it and you didn't want anyone to know. And that word just felt icky to you. Can you just talk to me about what, being on both ends of the spectrum, not knowing if you're going to survive, to all of a sudden being one of the self-made richest women? What was that like? Because you didn't change, but a lot in your world did.
Yeah, that was really a crazy experience. Like I grew up thinking these things happen to other people. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I would be in the, grocery checkout lane and see these magazines and think like, of course I would dream about it and think, oh, imagine, but like deep down inside, I think I always thought, oh, that happens to other people or people who are qualified or come from a certain family or whatever it is, have money, whatever it is. So we were super burnt out after how this Forbes thing all happened is, it had been, 10 years of 100-hour weeks. And I thought, okay, maybe we'll go public because we were getting pretty large finally as a company. But if you go public, you still run the business and you're still, now at the mercy of quarterly earnings calls and investor, like it's even more stress. And I thought, okay, I love our message and what we're building, but like we started launching in other countries, doing it out of our own office. And I realized, oh my goodness, it is so much work because every single country around the world has different HR laws and regulatory compliance laws. And we're trying to just navigate it all. And I realized, if we do it ourselves, it's going to go a lot slower. If we, partner with someone like L'Oreal or a huge beauty company, they already have people on the ground in, over 100 countries, and they can instantly, scale not just your business, but also your message and your impact that you're having. And in our case, on girls and women everywhere, which was my passion. And long story short, we started meeting with L'Oreal 3 years before they bought us. And they actually initially wanted us to change our packaging and all those things as well. And it's like, wow, they ended up buying our company 3 years ago. It was their largest U.S. acquisition in history, and they paid $1.2 billion, all cash for it. They made me their first female CEO in their 100-plus year history. And I remember at the time when it happened thinking like, wow, had we even listened to them early on about changing, we would be doing what everyone else is doing, and they probably would have never bought our company. Do you know what I mean? So it's like just another thing about sticking to it. But when that deal happened, obviously we were going to share, the partnership with our employees, but like we weren't planning on the deal terms ever being public. And the night before the acquisition, we got a phone call. L'Oreal is a public company, and they had made the decision to announce the purchase price. And I was like, no, because, I had heard all these stories about, especially if you're someone that, doesn't come from a situation like that it can cause a lot of trauma to friends and family and relationships. And everyone comes out of the woodwork and thinks you're an ATM machine and thinks you must just have $1.2 billion cash in your pocket right now. And you know what I mean? And it was really a crazy 24 hours. But the day of the acquisition, L'Oreal announced the purchase price. And after that, a lot happened, but one of the things that happened was Forbes called our PR team at It Cosmetics, and they also wrote an email, and they said, here's what we're estimating Jamie's net worth is to be, and we're going to publish this in our article about the 60 richest self-made women. And I'm like, what? I'm like, first of all, there's no way they could know anything because they don't, it wasn't made public how many investors we have or who owned what shares or anything, right? So I'm like, they can't know. And I had my team respond back to them that I wasn't interested in the article or, and to thank them for their time. And then Forbes replied and said, well, they believe in the integrity of their list, and otherwise it's not a true list. So they publish their estimates no matter what, whether you talk to them or not. And they have enough supporting data to publish the number they're going to publish. And I freaked out about it. And, they asked, what part of it does Jamie own versus her husband? Like all of these questions, which to this day, I've never commented on money or talked to them about money. And so when they said they were going to publish the article, I had our head of PR share with them, well, if you want to share our story and get our messaging out there, that would be great. But Jamie's not going to talk about money. And so long story short, they published a really great article. The reporter was awesome who worked there and never talked about money or anything, but their list came out. And I think, Jenna, I realize there's this weird thing about women and money. And the funny thing that the reporter said to me is she was trying to understand why I didn't want to comment on money. And she says, all of the women on our list, most all of them don't want to be part of the list. And she said, but all of the men, all they do is call and say the number needs to be higher. And they argue. I'm like, what is that about? Right. And anyways, what happened was I hid it. So anytime anyone would ask about it or the PR team at Cosmetics would, do an introduction or whatever, anytime that Forbes was referenced, we even changed the name of it and how we referenced it to most successful women, self-made women. I hid the word richest. I was embarrassed. I thought and then I had this realization just this year where I thought, oh my gosh, what have I been doing? Meaning, me hiding my success like that or being ashamed of it or minimizing it or dimming my own light. All that does is act as a disservice to other girls and other women because so many times in our life, we have to see someone else's story or see what's possible for us to believe it for ourselves. And I'm hiding it and dimming it. And how many women out there or girls out there that are like me and don't come from, families that have had a lot of success, or they don't feel qualified, or they don't feel enough. I'm hiding what's possible from them. And I just had this huge aha moment where, you know what, it was just this year. I'm not going to hide it anymore because I don't want to take that away from other people who have big dreams. And sure, when you have stuff out there, you get haters and whatever, but I'm going to just deal with it because I just think women, we've dimmed our own light to be quiet and polite and gracious and grateful and minimize our successes. And all that does is rob other women of stories of what's possible for them and examples. And it's like, I'm sure so many women in your community right now see what's possible because they see what Jenna's done and how Jenna's doing it. And it's like, so many times in my life, like I look to Oprah and I see what's possible and other women like you and so many of my friends. And it's like, if we actually hit our stories, that makes no sense. So I had a big epiphany and I'm like, I'm going to stop dimming my light, because it's really, again, not about me, right? It's about, just if it helps other people see what's possible, other people who've dealt with like being told they're not enough or their body isn't right or their idea isn't going to work, or maybe it's just they're underestimating themselves, which we all do sometimes. Like, I'm not going to dim that anymore for them. That's my Forbes situation this year.
I feel like that is a mic drop moment. Jamie, thank you so much for just sharing your story. Where can everybody find out about you and learn more about the amazing woman that I've fallen in love with?
Oh, I am on my own Instagram now. For a lot of years, it was It Cosmetics and a big team, but my Instagram, which is Jamie Kern Lima, that is where I'm on and active. So that is the best place right now. And I am in love with you, Jenna. I am so, just as another woman, and I know I speak for millions of women out there, but like, I am so inspired by you and just proud, of who you are, of what you're doing, of how you're shifting culture in so many ways around women being financially free, around, confidence. And I just adore you.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm so excited for people to listen in and hear your story.
Yay. Thank you, Jenna.
I don't know about you, but I was literally on the edge of my seat during that entire interview, wondering what's going to happen next. Is she going to get a yes? Is she going to sell out? Are they going to survive? And how the heck did they turn this dream that started in her living room into a $1 billion business? I love Jamie's point at the end that we as women need not shy away from success, because when we step into our power, we elevate one another and show what is truly possible. I am so grateful that I get to interview women like Jamie Kern Lima on this podcast and call it a job. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Goal Digger Podcast. Get out there and show the world what's possible when you believe in something so much that you will not waver. Until next time, Goal Diggers, keep on digging your biggest goals. I'll talk to you soon. I'm over here giving you a virtual high five because you just finished another episode of the Goal Digger Podcast. Did that go by way too fast for anyone else? If you want more, head over to goaldiggerpodcast.com for show notes and all the discount codes from today's sponsors. And if you're looking for a new crew of movers and shakers like you to bounce ideas and ask questions, be sure to join my exclusive community for Goal Diggers on Facebook. The link's waiting for you at goaldiggerpodcast.com.